Hello, you're listening to A Hero's Welcome, Episode 7. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Wes, and with me to talk everything in the world of Overwatch, Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
I'm doing good. Super excited. Get to talk about one of my favorite heroes this week. We're talking all about Hanzo.
That's right. Today's strategy segment is going to be all about Hanzo because we could always have more Hanzos on our team.
Right? I mean, who needs healers when you got RNG Arrow?
Yeah, and 2 other snipers already on your team.
Yeah, so we're talking a lot about Hanzo this week. So I got a chance to play him. Got into the brawl. Played a lot of Hanzo Genji action going on. So who you been playing a lot this week?
I wasn't playing too much of the brawl. I was mostly playing Mercy still.
Still playing that Mercy?
Number one played character still, yep.
Yep, got to take care of all that Hanzo's going on.
Yeah, I could give him 30% more scatter arrows.
30% more scatter arrows and a lot of ults going on. Double dragon action.
Right, well maybe I've been blessed with my loot boxes because I've been playing support characters. How's your loot boxes coming?
Yeah, not so good for me.
Not so good?
Not so good for me. I can't remember. I don't think I even opened a single legendary yet. Definitely not any that I care about. So
probably has nothing to do with you playing Hanzo all the time.
Yeah, nothing to do with Hanzo.
All right,
or
well
Genji.
let's go ahead and get into the news. Let's start off by saying that we found out a little while ago that there's over 7 million people playing this game.
7 million. That's a pretty high number. I mean, I knew it was going to be a lot, but 7 million. A lot of heroes out there.
Yeah, I don't really see 7 million players, but I guess, MMR and people on the console.
Yeah, you tend to see a lot of similar faces where you're at, but 7 million's huge number.
So what are the stats that we find out?
119 million, more than 119 million games played total. It's a lot of games played, so I don't think I've contributed that much to that 119 million, but so it's a pretty big number. A lot of people playing hours into the night, I guess.
Yes, and with those players we had some cheaters.
Lots of cheaters. Apparently a lot of Chinese cheaters out there.
A lot of Chinese cheaters that got caught.
Yeah, a lot that got caught. I'm sure there will be more on the way, but over 1,500. I think the current number was 1,572 Chinese players permanently banned. That's permanently banned for hacks or exploits or add-ons.
Right, so one thing I found interesting was they actually had a wall of shame in China that listed the battle tags of all the cheaters that got banned. And I was thinking this is probably very effective, and Blizzard could take some notes, in the North America and EU
regions.
It's
not something that we've seen too often, not in the EU or NA at all. Yeah, I mean, I think hats off to them for doing that. Anybody who's willing to cheat, got to be willing to get caught. So I don't know. I mean, it's awesome to see that they're actually doing something about it and putting a real hard line against cheating in this game. So
I'm all about treating everybody fairly, so we should have a wall of shame.
Right.
Over here.
Definitely. If you're willing to cheat, you better be willing to have your name up on that wall. So
and another $40.
Another $40, yeah. Not to mention, I mean, they did talk about that too. People who are, purchasing a new account and things like that are, people are still just banning them pretty much right after. So
yeah, we talked about cheating in the past a little bit about, sometimes people may suspect others of cheating because they have this weird twitch kind of reflex, style.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the PC gaming using the mouse and keyboard, you see a lot of Twitch movements, a lot of people who've been playing FPS for a long time coming in this game. So just something to keep in mind. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're cheating just because they have those Twitch plays, things like that.
Right, in the playbacks, it's important to know that they're not usually the same high quality when you watch the replays.
Right, the fidelity is not quite as good when you're watching the replay. So they did talk about that. Blizzard mentioned that is not their only way or their main means of using to put a case against a person for cheating. So it is something that you can send in to Blizzard. We have our link actually down in the show notes, and Blizzard had a forum post, a blue post specifically linking their email. And there's also a report feature in the game that's very good for that as well. So there's definitely ways that they can look into it, but they did mention that, there's several different ways they're looking at for looking into cheaters, and that is not going to be their only way. So I know they mentioned specifically when they posted the list of all these people that are being permanently banned, a lot of them right away just crying out that they got banned for no reason, or they just kind of got swept up with the rest of them. Blizzard came right back and just said, their evidence is secure, and, nobody got picked up or got permanently banned for no reason at all. There's evidence for it, and just don't even bother complaining because you're banned and you're banned for real. So.
Right, so some other news is the Ghost of Gamers Overwatch Weeklies returned. So they had them going on during the beta. If people were following the scene before the launch, we had these Ghost of Gamers Overwatch Weeklies, and they were really fun. Every single week guaranteed tournament play, and they have it separated for NE tournaments every single week.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great to see this going on early on in the scene, and I mean, it's awesome to have something to look forward to every week. They have the EU first on Saturday, and the NA tournament's going on Sunday. So if you're looking forward to that, you can find that. We'll have the link as well in our show notes. So, I mean, hats off to them for bringing this back. I look forward to it. It's a good chance to just have something to look forward to, and you just be caught up in the game all times.
Right, so they started off. They have 64 teams, and that's both regions, and the format they're using right now is stopwatch, so that's what they had been using in the past. But there is a new rule, which we could talk a little bit about if you like, but the 1 hero limit.
Right, so they're going with the typical stopwatch. We've seen that. That's what they ran in the past. That's what a lot of FPS players are familiar with. But the 1 hero limit is something that's very unique to Overwatch because of the heroes and because the way the game kind of unfolds. A lot of people are kind of on both sides of that argument. Some people saying that they don't like the hero limit. It limits things too much. It kind of makes things stale. But on the other end, a lot of people are saying that if you don't have that hero limit, then you're finding a lot of the same cheesy comps run all the time, constantly. These teams are scrimming, hours on end every day, just scrimming these comps on these locations, and they just get so used to playing these comps, and that's all they're running. So arguments on both sides of that.
Yeah, so we were going to talk about the hero limit later, but let's go ahead and talk about it now, because I think there's pros and cons to both sides, and recently with the 1 hero limit, I do think that the games have been better recently, but I don't know if that's just because it's different, and I just like different, and it's not, 2 Tracers and 2 Winstons all the time, so I don't know if it's just better because it's just not what it used to be, because, statistically, with the hero limit, you're going to have less comps, combination of
less combinations, less options. That's what most people are on that side of the fence saying. As well, we only have, we'd say only, but there is 21 heroes available at the moment. We're looking forward to many more coming out, and so we kind of got to think into the future. Is this going to hold true into the future? I'm of the same mind as you. I agree. The games have been a lot better having the 1 hero limit thus far. It brings a lot of diversity to the game, not forcing these teams to just kind of play the same comps and a lot of mirror comps in that thing. But also into the future, when we have more players available, although that will bring more compositions available with the 1 hero limit, it's still really limiting the kind of fun play that you can get by doubling up heroes. I don't know if I totally agree with that in the future. I just really want to see some open play, just some ability to just really see what these teams can come up with. These weird cheesy comps, they feel really cheesy right now because they're so strong in some areas, the way they're being played. But later on in the future, I feel like with more available heroes, that things can much more be easily countered. I just think that having the option to allow players to double up heroes it's interesting to see, what they can come up with. I like it. So
yeah, I think there's a good argument on both sides, and I wonder what the pros think. Do they get tired of 2 Winstons and 2 Lucios all the time?
Yeah, I gotta imagine that there's gonna be people on both sides of that argument at the pro level as well. Maybe the voice is a lot more, on one side of the fence or the other, but I'm assuming it's probably split just like it is everywhere else. But I can imagine they got to get tired at some point of running the same comps or running into the same comps and having to, we got to mirror this comp because it's really not a great counter to this comp or another. But we'll see how things go in the future. But it's definitely interesting to follow, and I'm looking forward to seeing what these tournament providers will cook up.
Yeah, because right now is the best time, just weeks after the games come out, to experiment. Right, and I've said this in the past. Right now is what we want to experiment. We want to experiment with all the format types, all the scoring types, and all these rule sets. So right now is definitely the time to be doing it, figuring it out. And like I said, just these past few games or tournaments, I've seen heroes you normally don't see. You see Reaper, you see Mei. You're seeing these heroes you normally don't get very much play with at all, and it's changing comps. And it's healthy, but you can make an argument that it'll eventually become stale on its own, right? Because
Right. I mean, I feel like either way it can become stale. It's just a matter of having a healthy mix of allowing multiple heroes and allowing people to try and come up with new things. That's why I think later on in the future I'm not so sure I support the one hero limit going on. But again, I feel like with only 21 heroes, with the limited availability that we have, there is going to be stale either way at the moment. But again, hats off to them for trying something different, and we'll see what happens in the future. But it's just one of those things that's going to have to just keep searching for the best answer. So
yeah, there's another argument about the spectating. Spectating 3 Tracers or 4 McCrees, 2 on each team, that could be kind of disoriented and not really fun. Maybe I can see the argument, but
yeah, I mean, there's good arguments on either side of the coin. There's a lot of different things that go into it. A lot of thoughts to be things to be thought about. But again, it's just one of those things. It's real early on. We're just gonna have to see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what Blizzard officially has. When they have their official tournaments, see what rules they go with. But back to the Ghost of Gamers. So they were running the stopwatch, which is what we're mostly familiar with. They had the one hero limit, which was interesting. Double elimination brackets, pretty normal, and it wasn't open. So everyone listening to this, I mean, it has 64 teams, and only some of them are,
some
seeded.
of the more well-known,
only a couple of them get seeded.
Top 8 get seeded.
Yeah, the vast majority of them, I mean, they're just teams getting put together. So anyone listening to this, grab 5 buddies and
definitely check it out. I mean, it's awesome to see that they're doing open tournaments to all players. So definitely check it out. Maybe we'll be watching you in the future.
Yep. So shifting gears, let's talk a little bit more about the competitive scene because some things are going on. Last week we were recording the show, episode 6. The Agents Rising hadn't quite finished, right? It was the last day.
Right.
So we want to say congratulations to Cloud9, who ended up taking it home. Not a big surprise.
Right. I mean, they've been doing a great job all throughout. They've been just running through teams left and right. Definitely one of the favorite teams, but it's always awesome to see them play. I mean, they play with such skill and precision, and they play together as a team just so well. Probably one of the better team compositions. So great job to them. Congrats again, Agents Rising.
Yeah, it was a great tournament. If you haven't caught it, there's VODs I'm sure you could find. But great games, great teams, the best teams. And yeah, Cloud9 is, most would agree that they're the best team in the world right now.
Yeah, well, it's early, but we'll see. Definitely looking forward to more games with them. So.
Yep, and in other news, we've been talking about Rogue quite a bit lately.
Right, we mentioned in one of the previous episodes a totally new organization, Rogue, coming up, made up of a few of the previous roster members from IDDQD, including Tavik and IDDQD, the player. And they actually just recently parted ways. Rogue parted ways with IDDQD.
Yeah, then that's kind of a familiar trend we've been seeing. I mean, it's kind of sad. But I mean, eventually, I think we'll see these teams stabilize a little bit and keep members.
Yeah, I mean, it's so early on. I mean, we're going to see a lot of roster changes, and so I mean, it's nothing new for FPSs or esports in general. So I mean, we're going to be seeing a lot more of it, I'm sure, in the future. But hopefully, sooner and later, we'll see them kind of stabilize out. So we'll see. We're looking forward to getting some actual teams that are real stable, and looking forward to seeing the same people on the same teams and kind of getting really to know the players themselves as well as the organizations.
Yep. Very exciting. And another team we haven't talked about yet, let's talk about Nubris. They've been around for a couple months now. They've been showing a lot of good games. Right.
I mean, kind of coming out of nowhere. I hadn't heard of them previously, Team Nubris, but really doing a great job, taking some big matches that I was not expecting at all. So, I mean, they've been doing a great job. They're at about a 74% win rate in the last 19 games, which is last couple of months where they kind of came up out of. So doing a great job. Good showing at the Gosu Weekly if you're going to take a look at that. They did a great job. They even took Team Liquid, so a popular team that we've seen around a lot, and they did a great job.
Yeah, a lot of people would say Team Liquid's probably not, tier 1, but they definitely surprised me, and there was some really good play.
Right, some really good play. So if you're looking for some good games, take a look at the Gosu Weekly. We'll have the link down in our show notes for that as well.
Yeah, some people on that team might be familiar, right? We know.
Right, so Cool Matt and Stoop, two of the previous members of Envious, Team Envious, coming over to Team Numerous and just really filling out that roster. They're two really good players and doing an amazing job so far. So looking forward to more of those two players.
And speaking of Envious, we want to congratulate Envious for winning both the NA and the EU.
An amazing job. Both NA and EU.
So
both of them.
The way that kind of worked is Envious is an NA team,
right.
But I guess there wasn't very many competition. Many teams play in the EU, and even though they did play in EU servers and they are based here in NA, they competed and they took first place on both.
Right, so because of the drop of IDDQD from the Rogue team, they actually were not able to compete in that tournament, and so, that kind of left open some space for Envious to come in and kind of fill out that roster in the EU as well.
Yeah, because Envious has a mix of different nationalities on their team, but they do have a gaming house, I know that much at least, right here in NA, and it's kind of interesting. What are your thoughts on gaming houses? We don't really talk about gaming houses.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a great idea. It really allows them, the team members to come together in a single environment and get the most out of their team aspect. It's one of those things that's still relatively new. We're seeing a lot of teams getting into the whole gaming house setup, but I don't see there too much of a downside. It's awesome just to have people together in a single environment to be able to really kind of sit down and practice and set aside time to just kind of bring their best to the tournament. So it's one of those age-old things where sometimes working at home or working away from your job kind of makes distractions a lot more prevalent and things of that nature. So having them all in a single gaming house really, I think, eliminates a lot of the distraction in that way. So
yeah, it's kind of like you live with your bros. You go Taco Bell together, you go to the gym together. But a lot of these guys are younger. A lot of them have never been employed. A lot of them don't know how to live on their own, and it's just kind of interesting. You just put all that in one house. People have different personalities. They clash differently. I'm sure. I've heard stories, not within the Overwatch scene, but sometimes it could get pretty bad.
Yeah, so it's definitely something interesting. Like I said, it's still relatively new to a lot of people. Like you mentioned, a lot of the players being on the younger side. So it's definitely something that's very interesting to talk about. So
let's talk about. We know in the future patch, hopefully 3 or 4 weeks away, we are going to be getting the first major content patch, and with that, hopefully a ladder or competitive mode. And I was wondering what you thought would be the best version of that. What's that going to look like in Overwatch?
Well, we talked a lot about it in the past. The rank system, I know previously they had the rank system in the beta, a very short amount of time. They got a lot of overly critical feedback on that as well. There's just a lot of things that goes into that. I know a lot of people were talking about the whole solo queuing. They mentioned in the past they weren't sure how they were going to work that out, whether there was going to be a separate solo and team queue as well, and how that would kind of separate out. But I know Kaplan specifically mentioned that they're working on it, and they have an idea on how they want to balance the single player versus the whole team queue aspect. So I think I prefer the separate solo queue and team queue feature, but it really is such a new thing with Overwatch. I don't really know exactly how it's going to work out yet, so we're looking forward to seeing what they come up with and kind of going from there.
By team queue, do you mean a full 6-man, either 6 or 1?
I think it's going to have to be more than that. I think it's going to be a matter of a single queue, a solo queue, or multiple. So any more than one person would have to be separated out from the solo queue. So it just depends on how they want to go about balancing everything. So with the option of being able to switch your characters in the middle of the game and not locking into a certain character like most games do, it's just so many numerous things that have to be calculated into the whole matchmaking. So it's really a completely different animal, this game.
Yeah, personally, the only thing that worries me is a bad ladder. And everything in this game has been so, overwhelmingly awesome, to be honest. But the only thing I mean, if they don't get it right the first time, we seen the problem with Heroes of the Storm. They eventually kind of made it better, but some damage was already done. But I mean, it's possible they don't have a solo queue. I mean, it must be so difficult to design a system for everyone. I mean, not everyone's going to be happy. Some people think, oh, competitive, obviously you're coming with the team and you're going to compete against other teams. And some people say, oh, I just want a solo queue and I just want to only go up against solo queue. I don't want to queue up against a pre-made of 3 or 4 or 5.
Right. I mean, they talked a lot in recent weeks about a new feature coming to Heroes of the Storm about having an actual drafted unranked setup. And I think they're trying to kind of fulfill that whole, single person aspect of wanting to kind of get a more, competitive mode without having to be in a full team. So, I mean, the kind of same thing applies here with Overwatch. So we have a lot of people who are very much on that side of the fence who just want some kind of competitive mode where they can go in and play solo queue and just get really good ranked matches and feel like they're playing against people of their skill. And then you have people on the total opposite spectrum who want to go in a whole 6-man pre-made and just go in and just face other teams. So it's a whole other animal because, I mean, they're going to try and set people up and rank them together of a similar skill. But, I mean, you have so many different characters and the ability to switch within that just makes it so hard to rank people. I mean, certain people you'll see who are just really good at the game. They're just going to be good across all heroes. And then there's going to be certain people who are going to be good with, a number of maybe 1 or 2 characters, 3 characters. So again, it's a totally different thing. We're looking forward to seeing what Blizzard has in mind. I trust that they will do a good job, and hopefully we won't have a similar repeat of what happened with Heroes.
So what are some Andrew must-haves in the ladder?
Well, again, like I mentioned, I definitely want to separate the single and the solo queue. I'm really looking forward to being able to solo queue on my own and try and get some really good competitive matches in there. I really like the idea of having an actual number rank to myself and not just having a category that I fall under. They talked about changing to more of a 3-month ranked length, and I like that. I'm hoping that they stick with that, and I'm hoping that works out really well. 3 months sounds a lot better than a month, so that's definitely a must for me. And I'm definitely looking forward to just being able to get some games in at my rank and not having so many matches under or above where my skill is. So I'm hoping that the matching, the MMR, works really well. That's really the key with everything. I feel like if the rank system is set up decently and people are happy with the season lengths and all of that, but the MMR matching just has to be on point. If it's not on point, it's not going to work.
Right. I think Blizzard needs to prioritize quality matches, meaning, your team and opposing team is equally skilled and the games are nice and close. And I know Blizzard loves progression systems. They love journeys. We know there's going to be rewards tied into this, which is awesome. But, I mean, personally, quality matches have to be great, and I want to know exactly where I stand.
Right, that's what I was talking about with the actual ranked number. I think a lot of people are of that mind, and I am similarly of that mind. I definitely want to know exactly where I stand. So, looking forward to the ranked mode. I cannot wait. It's the one thing I'm really waiting for. So
yeah, I probably shouldn't be so worried about it, but it's just that's what I do. 90% of my games are going to be in the ladder.
Same here. So I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Blizzard, do me right.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the meta. Just, what characters are being played, what characters are not being played. So these are, it's important to note, from competitive games. We're not talking about, regular...
Yeah, we're not talking about the whole span of quick play. We're just specifically trying to tie into competitive.
So the most popular... We just did the most popular 3 and the least popular 3. Most popular 3, probably not a big surprise, McCree, Mercy, Lucio.
No Hanzo. What's up with that?
After the show, everyone's going to be Hanzo. We're going to change the meta.
Change the meta, everybody. We can do it. But and then the lowest 3, Mei, Torbjorn, and Hanzo. So
hopefully that will, down there.
Yeah, hopefully that will change after this episode. But
yeah, we'll definitely teach everybody how to play Hanzo.
Yeah. So definitely looking forward to that. So, I mean, we already kind of talked about the hero limit as well. We did mention that a lot of the tournaments are trying out different things with that. So our thoughts on that. Potential changes, we actually recently from the Blizzard forum post, they mentioned looking at a couple different heroes, specifically McCree and D.Va and Widowmaker. So looking forward to possible changes coming to them. I know they kind of mentioned McCree being a little bit on the higher end, the little bit of the overpowered on McCree. So they're looking forward to changing him. I'd be interested to see how that works out. And
so the community is very outspoken on who's overpowered. So who does Andrew think?
Well, the community is overspoken about everybody being overpowered.
All right, but what does Andrew think? What's the most imbalance in the game?
Most imbalance in the game?
Either too strong, too weak.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a huge gap there that needs to be changed. McCree, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what they do with him. I definitely feel like he's in the top of the tier, like we just talked about. He's one of the more high-played characters, so they could definitely tweak him a little bit. I just hope they don't do too much with that. I have mentioned in the past, I really like playing Zenyatta, so I'm hoping they will do something with that. He's a little bit on the weaker end. He's not really played a lot at the moment, so I look forward to them really doing something with that. They really need to buff his health, I think, a little bit. But so yeah, I mean, they talked about D.Va as well being a little bit on the lower end. I know some people are saying she's just complete garbage. Some people even say she's overpowered. I don't get that at all. But so they're saying she's a little bit in the bottom tier of things, and they're looking forward to trying to buff her. They did specifically mention that it's probably not going to result in a direct damage buff because her damage isn't terrible.
And she's a tank.
It's her whole kit that really, I think, needs a little bit of work on. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with that. And Widowmaker, I think she's probably one of the ones people are most outspoken about. So people getting a little crazy over Widowmaker. She is very strong. She's definitely strong. She's definitely, if used properly, can take a team apart. But I mean, that's what snipers do in a game like this. So you really just kind of have to play around that. So I mean, what are your thoughts on Widowmaker? Do you think she's okay? Do you think she needs some nerfing? What's going on there?
In my opinion, the game is overall very well balanced. But if I had to make a change, it would most likely be with Widow, and it would be specifically with body shots. And that also fixes Zenyatta a little bit as well.
Right. It definitely helps out with Zenyatta. I mean, I still think there's work to be done with him. But, yeah, I mean, I hear that some people mentioning that she's just a little too strong with the body shots. I think a lot of people prefer her to be more of a headshot type of character.
Yeah,
and just
we need to incentivize headshots.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for incentivizing good play. So definitely, look forward to changes coming to those three heroes, and we're looking forward to that. So
yeah, well, we will definitely be covering all the changes in the future.
Right. So any changes, we will definitely let you know.
All right, so let's get into strategy. We mentioned before we're talking about Hanzo, and I did want to make a quick note. Last show, I made a mistake on Mercy's health. I said she had 250. Correction, she has 200 health, the same as Hanzo.
Right, so same 200 health as Hanzo, whoever's doing our note-taking.
Yeah, shame on that guy.
Shame on that person. But, so this week's all about Hanzo. He is a defensive character. He does have 200 health. Very standard there. So
like his overall gameplay, what would you explain? Like, probably kind of a mid to long range.
Yeah, I see sniper. A lot of people playing him more long range like a sniper, and he does have that ability, but I really love playing him more in the mid range. I think he can really do such an amazing job of helping moving things along in mid range. So
pretty good mobility.
He's got good mobility, not quite as good as somebody like a Genji or Tracer, but I mean, you can definitely make things happen with a good Hanzo if you know what you're doing. So definitely long range to mid range is where you want to be with him.
All right, so let's get into his kit. He has a passive wall climb. Pretty self-explanatory. He's able to jump at walls and climb them, and on the PC, you just do this by holding spacebar.
Right, so you just kind of jump at the wall. You're able to climb the wall. You can climb for a pretty good distance. You can get up to most things that you want to try and reach with him. So it really allows him to be that sniper and get those shots from a higher vantage point. So definitely a needed part of his kit.
Yeah, you're able to do things that you can't do in other characters. Instead of taking the doorway, you could take the window. Or
right,
you,
exactly.
You could, instead of peek, a normal, height, you could run up the wall and kind of run over and be more unpredictable with your movement.
Right. I always take the window, but So, yeah, definitely look for ways to use that in your kit. It will really help you out to make shots and to help you get a bead on the players before they can get a shot off on you. So if you're dueling against another Hanzo, say, or even a Widowmaker, it can help you kind of get yourself out of those dangerous pickles. So on his main weapon, which is his Stormbow. So you have a left click. You have his primary fire, which charges up his arrows. Typical. You just hold the left click or your primary fire, and you pull your arrows back, and you're able to release them and do damage with your arrows. So there's a lot of little things to talk about there with when you should be using them fully charged and when you should be letting them go a little early. It changes the range, it changes the trajectory of them, and it definitely changes your damage when using that. So keep that in mind. We'll definitely be talking a lot about different situations for that.
Right, so it's pretty obvious what you play the character, but there's pretty much a pullback charge on the arrow. So, like you said, the arc is affected, but mainly the damage is affected. So it does anywhere from 29 to 125 damage at a full charge, and it takes about 1.2 seconds to get to a max charge.
Right. So full charge to full charge, it's about 1.2 seconds rate.
And knowing when to fully charge or just half a charge is part of learning Hanzo.
Yeah, it's a big part of learning Hanzo. So definitely keep your eye on different ways to use his primary fire. Also, his alternate or his right click is just the ability to cancel his shot. So a lot of people are unaware of this, or it takes them a little while to figure it out. But no matter what, if you have an arrow charged up, you're able to just right click and cancel that. And it's really good for movement, because if you have to hurry up and get out of the way, climb something, move around, dodge something, you definitely don't want to be trying to dodge something with an arrow charge. You move much slower. So definitely you're able to cancel that shot and be able to move around a lot quicker.
Yeah, it's important to note that when you're charging, you do move slower, just kind of like Widow moves slower when she's scoped. And yeah, there's probably times where you don't want to fire the arrow. You have an arrow pulled back. Maybe you don't want to give away your position. But most of the time you could probably just let the arrow fly, and the large hitbox of the arrow might find its way towards somene's head.
Yeah,
that happens sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a shot in the dark.
You can always just let it go, but it just depends on what you're doing. If you're, waiting for somebody to get up close to be able to use your scatter shot or any of that, you're able to just stop it before letting it go. So
let's talk about the Sonic Arrow. This is default keybind shift. It's a sonar arrow, displays enemies in a radius. So it looks a lot like Widowmaker's ult, infrared sight, and it lasts for 10 seconds. The cooldown's 20 seconds. It does do damage. So you're able to, stick an enemy with an arrow, and it actually moves around with them.
Right. So yeah, it's a cool thing. A lot of people, you'll see, they'll put it on like the Reinhardt or maybe even the healer, somebody who's going to be around their team, be able to just give you sight on the whole team. But yeah, and with the amount of uptime on this, it really gives you the availability to keep it on the team and give your team visibility on your enemies. So definitely look for ways to use that. Seen some really unconventional ways of using it. So it's definitely an amazing ability. It can help you out. I think a lot of people kind of push it off to the side, don't really use it a lot in the way that they should. So definitely don't forget about it. It's a vital part of his kit for sure.
There's a lot of strengths to it. Obviously, being a sniper, being able to see them come around the corner, especially with the travel time with the arrows. You have to measure the arc and the travel time. Just information in general is so valuable, and it's important that your whole team takes advantage of it. So it's not just something you're seeing. Your whole team.
Any kind of information that is given to the team in general is so strong, especially in a game like this, where team is everything. So definitely use it often. Hopefully you use it in the correct way. Use it in entrances, doorways, on the enemy teams. Just kind of give yourself an area where it's going to give you maximum vision on the enemy. Will help you and your team out for sure.
Yep, but let's talk about RNG arrow. Scatter arrow, default E.
That RNG arrow, man. So many people so mad about that, but
it's simple geometry. It's not RNG.
Simple geometry. Yes. So basically, your E ability, your scatter arrow, arrow ricochets into multiple different arrows after its first hit. So depending on where you shoot this arrow, it will divide into a total of 5 separate arrows. So the cooldown is about 10 seconds. It has basic total bounces of 3. All 5 arrows can bounce into 3 total bounces. Standard damage is 75 for the arrow, and then when it splits off into the 5 arrows, you actually get about a total damage of 375. So enough to kill pretty much anybody in the game. So
yeah, a few important things to note. Last time I checked, they do go through the character, so you get multiple hits per divided arrow, if you would.
Right.
So a lot of potential damage, obviously, within little buildings or coreways, or just aiming it at their feet, which is what you commonly see just up in the open. And they did make a change not too long ago to where you cannot get headshots from the scatter arrow once it scatters.
Right, so that's a big thing to talk about because it can be a little bit confusing. But so if you shoot someone with a scatter arrow and you hit them in the hitbox, you can get a headshot with the initial shot. You cannot get a headshot once it splits. So if you're shooting it at someone's foot or right in front of them, the split is not going to hit them and get a headshot and just wreck somebody. So definitely, keep in mind when you're using the ability, it does not headshot once it splits.
Right, and if your enemy's not in, like I said, like a small building or a little cave or something, typically what you'll see is Hanzo's aim, right about the feet of an enemy, and you just apply, simple geometry like Hanzo says, and you kind of,
get the basic trajectory to the person.
They made some trajectory changes in the beta as well, so it's much more predictable now. Right. It's not as random, and maybe Zenyatta, you aim a little bit further back because he doesn't have legs. Well, he's hovering.
Right, exactly. So it just depends on who you're targeting. But yeah, you can put it at their feet area right in front of them, and it will pretty much secure.
It's very good against flankers, right? Your tracers, your Genji, as long as it doesn't get reflected.
Yeah, that's one thing you definitely have to keep in mind when you are in mid-range with Hanzo is the possibility of flankers coming in. So sometimes you might want to hold on to that RNG arrow for those flankers.
It's very effective against those.
Yeah, if you get run up on by a Reaper or a Tracer, you're definitely going to want to have that RNG arrow handy.
Correct. Let's talk about the most, one of the more iconic ultimates in the entire game, Dragon Strike.
It's definitely one of my favorites. Don't know what in the world he says, but sounds pretty awesome. But so his ultimate summons a spirit dragon that travels in a straight line in the direction that you aim, passes through walls, and just wrecks people. That's what it does. So
I'm sure everyone who's played the game has seen this before.
Right, it's pretty obvious.
Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's blue.
Right, if it's red, you definitely don't want to be anywhere near it. So
run away. Okay,
run away. Yeah. So it has about a cast time of 1.5 seconds. It does about 200 plus DPS. It's got about a 4 meter radius range. One thing to keep in mind is you cannot move once you activate the ult. You're not able to move around or to jump and that sort of thing, but you can actually aim while this ability is going off. So it gives you a last second chance to really make sure you're aiming in the correct direction that you want to before the ult goes out.
Right, and so that's 200 damage per second. So for every second enemies within that range, which is about 4 meters of radius, it's 200 damage, which is quite a bit. And being able to use it efficiently, being able to make it so the enemy doesn't see it coming from a mile away. Like I said, it travels through walls, so you catch them off guard. Especially if because maybe you use your sonic arrow and you see them in a bind. You see them all cluttered up right there in that corner. You just shoot it right through there. Yeah,
another reason why the sonic arrow and having that vision is so incredibly important when using something like Dragon Strike. Again, just to mention the 4 meter radius of the ability, the 200 plus damage per second it's calculated different depending on how close to the center of the ability you are to. So just keep in mind if you are at the outer edge of the ability, you're able to still get away if you move quickly. So it is different. If you're in the center of it, well, good luck.
Right, so now that we know his whole kit, let's talk a little bit about using them efficiently together and piecing it all together so you actually are successful Hanzo.
Right, you want to be
the other two Hanzos on your team.
Benefit to your team and not a deficit like all those healers, But so we talked briefly about when you want to charge your shots and when you don't want to release them fully charged. You might release them early. So you want to talk a little bit about that. When is it beneficial to make sure that you're releasing it fully charged, and when might you use it not charged?
Right. So some things that come to mind very quickly is if an enemy's low on health, and maybe they're outside of melee range, you could just do a quick little charge. And it's important to know the trajectory is going to be much more different. But if it's just finish them off really quickly, maybe they're going to exit line of sight, they're going around the corner, maybe just hit them really quickly before they turn around. Obviously, if you just want to disengage, run up a wall, or retreat, would be another reason why you just shoot it off real quick and just book it.
Right. A retreat is a great example. You're able to actually you can even fire while backing up if you want to just kind of launch some quick arrows over the top. They do arc much more when you're not fully charged, so keep in mind, if you're aiming at a character who is directly in front of you, like you mentioned, somebody with low health, the arrow moves up pretty much immediately, and then it arcs back down. So where the arrow would fly straight at the point at which you're aiming, when you're releasing them not fully charged, they tend to arc and come back down to that point. So if you're aiming somebody right in front of you, you might aim a little bit lower than you would typically aim. And like I said, it's great for being able to retreat and just kind of keep some damage rolling, or keep some random arrows just kind of flying and keeping people on their toes when your team is retreating. So
right, we mentioned before, it's between 29 and 125 damage, so it's a huge range of damage.
Right, so you're really able to kind of determine at which point you need that full 125 damage or not.
And the size I kind of talked a little bit about it, but the size of the arrows are pretty large, because especially if you're used to playing hit-scan characters, the arrow size is pretty large. It's pretty, forgiving. So a lot of times you get headshots and you don't even know how that even happened.
Right, you're just kind of putting some damage out and kind of trying to keep people, on their toes, and you just happen to get that headshot off. So definitely, again, accuracy is not all it's cracked up to be when it comes to Hanzo. Really, just kind of putting damage out there sometimes is the best thing to do. With
a lot of
Hanzo.
times you're just pre-firing corners and stuff as well.
Right, exactly. Another reason why having that sonic arrow up and having that vision on the enemy team. So yeah, definitely look for different ways to use that. I know a lot of times, especially someone with like a tracer who's moving around all the time, if you don't have that scatter arrow, you're probably better off to just try and put some damage out really quickly on her than trying to fully charge it all the way up. She's not going to stick around.
Or just run up
long.
a wall. Tracers can't follow you that way.
Yeah, but it's not so much about trying to run away from the tracer, but sometimes that is the best thing to do for sure, especially against the tracer. But if she's low in health already, just putting that quick shot out there, you might be able to just get her.
So let's talk more about the sonic arrow. Now, some characters can dispel it. It's kind of like a dispel, like if you hit a Reaper and he cloaks the shadows, or what's that called?
Yeah,
he shifts out
his shroud. Yeah,
his shroud. That's right. And Tracer could like recall. So in those circumstances, what happens is the arrow just drops into place, so it won't follow them around, but it still does what it does. Gives you a little range. And I think there's some other ones. I mean, maybe like a May ice block would probably do that as well.
Ice block, ice wall, those sort of things will definitely, the arrow will end up just falling to the ground after that's over. So definitely keep in mind with those characters and how you're using the sonic arrow. I know we mentioned previously putting them on characters can be a very useful thing to do. Just keep in mind if you're putting it on like a Reaper or someone, that can all go away really quickly. Yeah,
and it's also silent. There's not like any kind of sound notification to your enemy that you could actually see them.
Right.
And there's
exactly.
no really way for them to find out.
Yeah, they're not able to see what is displayed from the sonic arrow, and they don't hear it go off. So it just sounds like a regular arrow to them. You're able to just put it out, and they know nothing of it. So again, just the way you're using that, very important. Don't forget the sonic arrow. A lot of people forget it because they're not worried about their team so much, and just be wary. Your team is the main point of this game. You want to really make sure that you're trying to help your team, not just trying to win your 1v1 duels.
All right, so talking about team play, his ultimate works really well when you're working with the team.
Right. So that's one of the things that a lot of people don't have the the advantage of. They're not always playing with friends. They're always playing a lot of times by themselves, solo queuing. But even then, you just want to keep in mind, if you can use it in combination with another character ability, or especially an alt, say like a Zarya alt is a really good one. We had a lot of fun with that last week. It's definitely very, very strong. If you can put that Zarya ult down, pulls the whole team into it, and it's just easy pickings for Hanzo ult.
Yeah, there's no really way of getting around it. I mean, it's going to go through walls. I mean, some, maybe an ice block. I mean, there's some people who have some immunities, but for the most part, it's going to be a team wipe, and you're going to be able to get that point.
Right, and even if they get away from it, they get out of it, you're definitely going to force a lot of aggression out there from your enemies. So be able to help you move that point and definitely make those advantages to those team fights. So definitely look for ways to use your Hanzo ult with other people. Again, we mentioned using it in very unconventional ways. It does go through walls. One of the things I always love to do is you don't just stand out in the middle open and use it. Usually if you're doing it that way, you're doing it wrong. So try and make sure that you're hiding it for as long as possible. Putting it through a wall or things like that definitely help you in ways to use the ability.
Right. So when you see Reinhardt ult, you could follow it up. If you see a Zarya ult, you could follow up. But just being able to recognize good times to use it, even outside of ultimates. If they're restricted to a certain building, a certain room, or they're in like a corridor or a hallway or something where there's no escape. That's going to be very good. And flanking, it's kind of hard, but you're Hanzo. You are able to maneuver pretty easily. If you're able to get behind the enemy and ult towards your team, right, they never see it coming.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of the ways that you can definitely use that ability and such a strong advantage. Again, just looking for different ways to use it. I see so many people just using the ability like they would any other arrow, and you just really want to take heed with how you're using it. It is an alt. It takes time to build up. It's not something that you're able to do every 10-20 seconds. So keep in mind combos, definitely trying to put it through in unconventional areas and unconventional directions to help you kind of catch your enemy off guard. There's a very loud audio cue when you fire the abilities. So keep in mind, if you're just using the ability straight up, they're going to get a huge warning to when that ability is coming. So a lot of times using it from a very long range can be helpful, because they hear the audio cue go off, they're looking for it, they don't see it, then bam, it hits them all of a sudden. Great way to catch them off guard, or other things like that can definitely help you.
It's also important to know that just because you don't kill somebody with it doesn't mean it's not effective as well, because you could divide teams, you could just like zone them out of entire areas, and it could still be very successful.
Right. So especially in certain maps, King Row is probably one of the ones that is more prominent. People have seen it on in the very narrow corridors of the street areas and other areas like that. Again, just helping your team out and zoning the enemy team out and keeping them off the payload. Such a vital tool. Don't think that you have to kill somebody with it. I always try and make sure that I'm going to get somebody with it. But if not, if it's valuable enough to just keep the team off of the payload or to keep your team moving along on the payload, it's definitely beneficial to use.
So you've been playing a lot of Hanzo. Give me one example of a character you're strong against and one that you're weak against.
So Hanzo's very good at long range, and so at long range you're able to really compete with most characters. But having the RNG arrow just makes him so strong at close range as well if you have that available. Zenyatta is really easy at a long range. He doesn't even see the arrow coming, he's dead. Headshot, it's over. Our RNG arrow, a Tracer, Zenyatta, Genji, you're able to just take them out really quickly at long range and even at mid range if you have that available. So I've been having a lot of fun playing with him. Again, I think he can definitely be used in some unconventional ways and be very helpful to his team. So definitely look for ways to use Hanzo to your advantage.
He's strong against Bastion. Are there still a lot of Bastions? I'm not sure. I don't see many Bastions. But
yeah, I always tend to run into Bastions. I don't know. It's really funny to me because I seem to run into a lot of them, and I think it's just where we're at right now. Hopefully people will at least learn to use him in a meaningful way. I see so many Bastions just set up, and it's hilarious how they use Bastions. So yeah, if there's Bastions, it's super strong. You're just able to RNG arrow them and just really take them out really quickly. and you just kind of pre-fire them around corners, take them out. But I prefer Genji in those situations. But
yeah, the only weakness that comes to mind right away for me is probably Reinhardt, because when he closes his gap with you, a couple swings you're down.
Right, and I mean we did mention that he has some mobility with his passive, but usually not enough to get away from Reinhardt. So definitely keep watching out for that. So I think that's going to conclude this character discussion this week. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you guys learned something about Hanzo, and hope that helps you guys in playing. So look forward to next week. We're going to be covering Mei, so it's all about Mei next week. Thanks again for listening. That's going to do it for this show. Look forward to our show next week when we have another one, and thanks for listening, guys.
Right, thank you guys so much for listening. Andrew and myself, we are definitely still very new at this podcasting thing. And we're learning a lot, and we just want to thank all the people who have written us so far. It means a lot to us, it really does. And you could get to us at heroeswelcomepodcast@gmail.com, and we're also on Twitter at 2 Moon Studios. Both of those should be in the link below, however you're getting this podcast. And I think that's about it. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time.
Until next time.